let's call the meeting to order. We have a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session in accordance with Idaho Code Section.
Still may come back.
Did you want me to continue?
Sorry.
74-206.
You have a second?
B.
B. Oh, good.
And then I'll second it.
Oh, there's no B on mine.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, that B, okay, B.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. We're in executive session. Thank you.
Yes.
Just, who's that?
Okay, we're out of executive session. And then a second. Okay, we're out of executive session. We stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have a motion to amend the agenda?
I will make a motion that we amend the agenda to add the word action after number G4.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Moving on to celebration and communications of Community Award, Superintendent Johnson.
Chairman and trustees, it's my honor to recognize some of our fabulous employees. We get the wonderful job of doing this every month. For those people that are living our values, what we call the Kuna way. So we'll go ahead and I guess I have control of this. Yes, so we have Jess Griswold from Initial Point. Lacey from Reed. Ashley from Silver Trail. We have Nicole and Jade from Hubbard. Alex from Swamp Falls, and he also works at Kuna. And then we have our fabulous junior ROTC program leaders. Val Swanson, who oversees child nutrition. And then Crystal from Crimson Point. And that will be our Kuna Way Awards for this month. As you know, trustees, we put these out on Wednesdays on our social media channels, and we get wonderful comments that celebrate the people further. So it's a nice addition that Allison helps us to celebrate her fabulous staff members. Thank you.
Can you talk to us about the STEM grant?
Yeah. Just stand up. First, it is my privilege to recognize our partner. If you'd like to stand up and say hello. Our meta person here in William Marks. William has met with me several times this year to kind of get an understanding of like what are our needs, some of the projects that Meta funds for schools. You want to say a few words, William? And then we'll get to the fun projects that you guys are helping us with.
Sure. thank you. I won't give away the super secret. But today's such a great day, so thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here. It's a great day because we're going to announce a grant, but it's even better for me because I got to meet the teachers who are going to be working with the students. And my mom was a teacher for 30 years, and my sister's a math teacher right now. And so I know how important this is. And I'm here to say thank you. Thank you for what you all do. Thank you for supporting the students and the teachers. And thank you for having this vision and bringing this vision to life. Really, you deserve all the credit for this. So from the whole team at Meta, thanks for all you do for the community. And I think the superintendent's going to tell us about the grant.
Yeah, thank you. So as you know, Chairman and trustees, the first $50,000, so we got $100,000 this year, and I know there's more money every year annually that we can apply for. But the first $50,000 is going to two fabulous people. You guys want to stand up? Hubbard, you guys recognize these wonderful faces here. They have been working, how many years? 3? 4. 3 years on a hope and a prayer and lots of volunteer hours to get their Lego competition up and running. And it's more than just a competition, it's all of the fun and the building up to that. And would you guys like to say a few words about what your dreams are for this money?
Well, first of all, we wanted to say thank you to everyone who donated the money, to Superintendent Johnson for thinking of our program for the money, and it's just been sort of a dream come true. So we're expanding. I know a few months back now, I guess we presented here with some of our students from the Lego Club. So that everyone kind of saw what that was. There's some pictures up there that is kind of the culmination of the expo that we kind of build up to when we work all season, where they take their projects and they're judged by reviewers. So there's some of our reviewers looking at their build, and the students are explaining it. And this year we had a balloon arch, and they ran through it, and so it was a big thing that they really loved. So you know, our vision is that we'd be able to reach more kids and to have more teams, because right now we just had 3 the last time we were here. So now we'll be able to have lots more teams. So that's kind of our vision, to grow it so that we don't have to necessarily have a waiting list at all. Hopefully that all the kids that want to participate will be able to, because there's nothing worse than when these little people come and ask me, has anyone quit? Actually, every week when I say, anyone yet? No, sorry. And it's like, maybe next year. So we haven't really shared anything yet, but we're going to be moving into 2 rooms, so we're expanding the space to accommodate more teams, more students, more technology. And so that picture there is, I don't know, Nicole, do you want to talk about that?
So when I heard about this, I immediately thought, oh my, this is our chance for a dream classroom. And I had gone to a classroom at the Docheo Center, if you've ever heard of that, at the University of Idaho. And this is their classroom, and teachers get to explore the dream technology classroom with your own TV and a collaborative environment. And so I gave the idea to Lisa, and we decided that's what we wanted to do. So along with extra Legos, we'll have more technology so the students can be more collaborative and show their creative ideas.
We'll also have more sort of hardware so that they can build more creative things, that they're not limited by just having one motor and one, light sensor. So now they'll have lots, so they can really use their creativity to kind of build bigger and better and more complex things. So, another hope. So that was kind of our, short-term goal of, spreading it through Hubbard. Another great thing about that's going to kind of be a benefit of this as well, it's also our Maker Lab. The Lego Club was sort of an outgrowth of a room that we have where we do STEM classes, and so it'll also benefit those students. So all of the students in our school go through through that each week they have a STEM class. So because the space is shared, they'll be able to also benefit from the technology there. So just even beyond the Lego Club, it'll benefit our whole school, which is over 200 students. So it's going to benefit everyone in our school, which is really exciting.
And hopefully also the district as well is a goal that it would spread to other elementary schools and we could get more people interested. We tried area schools and that didn't work, so now we're scaling back down to just Kuna schools to see if we can get more teachers involved. The hardest part is getting it started and staff to run it.
So we hope that ours will sort of be like a prototype that we can say, look, you know, this is something that you can do. And there are some, their read is very much on that. They are planning to start a club, so I'm hoping them kind of get going with a club for the fall. So hopefully they'll be joining us at least at school for the expo, and then, you know, so, you know, our big goal at the end is that, you know, all of the Treasure Valley will come and we'll just, you know, kind of expand and we'll just kind of take over, you know, but we're just so thankful and excited, and I know the kids are going to just be completely floored when they come back in the fall and see what's there for them to use.
So Nicole Crow and Lisa Gambo, I'm sorry to introduce them when I said stand up, I'm so excited for you. But they live the Kuna way as well, you know, like doing something from nothing and figuring it out, and then to be able to give them with the gift of Meta, give them this, make their dreams like explode, right? Yeah.
It's true.
So thank you.
We couldn't think at all at first, and then we're kind of frozen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the other part of there's another separate grant, so that's for them specifically, for their school to get it going even bigger, and then start to seed plant to grow the program. But then we have another $50,000 grant that will go to STEM-related projects. They're listed in the letter, the gift letter. It's like CTE to expand some of the Lego projects throughout our elementary. The hardest part for us is going to have to be to take that $50,000 and divvy it up among all of the other projects that are listed there. So thank you, William. We appreciate you meeting with us and helping us to make our dreams come true. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Big thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to the superintendent report with the annual Moody issuer comment.
Yeah, Chairman and Trustees, I'm happy to report. Normally in the superintendent's report, I talk more about the things we just celebrated, our teaching and learning in the school district, but this really should be a shout out to the board as a whole. As you know, starting, I think it's been about 6 years ago, this board set a goal to improve our financial status, which would help us when it came time to building, running bonds and getting good rates for the debt that we will borrow. In this kind of uncertain time, some school districts kind of lost some of that. We maintained our rating, and that's to your leadership. So I just wanted to share that publicly, that we were able to maintain our high, we have one of the highest ratings in the state, and that's because of the deliberate work you did with our community to make sure that we maintain a good, in essence, a good credit rating for the school district. Thank you.
Thanks. So we have the highest rating?
We have one of the highest ratings. Boise School District has the highest rating in the state. They have a lot more funding than we do, so that helps a little bit. And they've also had, a deliberate ongoing action to keep that as a part of their, we're not in control of the whole rating, but the pieces that we're in control of, we've done a good job.
I wish our patrons understood how that worked with the Boise School District and how they can carry their work forward with bonds and levies without even running an election for it.
They were a charter school district, as you know, so before statehood, so their way of raising funds was maintained as opposed to those of us who were just slightly after state.
I think it's Lewiston also.
Lewiston, and then we gave up theirs.
Oh, Emma did? Yep, I knew it was Lewiston. Boise.
It's very stupid. Not financially sound, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor of Vicky?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
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 Motion carries, thank you. Okay, so.
Chairman.
No delegates.
Chairman,
Yeah.
would it be okay if I recognize one of our new principals sitting next to Kevin Gifford, who's Michelle Moore? She is our newly hired principal of Reed Elementary. You can say hi.
She's very good.
Her husband's all right. Yeah, I'm okay.
Well, we appreciate you filling those big shoes there. Okay, and any delegates?
Nope.
Okay. Unfinished business, input on the timeline for the next bond election, update on the survey to the community, Superintendent Johnson.
Chairman and trustees, I'm going to co-present this with our fabulous communications director, Allison Westfall. As you know, since the bond failure in March, we've been working on kind of plans to learn more through, what do we do as far as our next steps. One of the things that we'd love your input on, in addition to the survey, that we've shared part, and we took some of your input and I want to run that by you today. But we would like to know kind of what you're thinking as far as a timeline for potentially the next election. The reason why that's important is it helps us to know how to backwards plan. So if we know, for example, if November is our time, then what do we need to do by when? If next November is our time, it gives us a little bit different response, I guess. So that's kind of the purpose of this hopefully short presentation. And then we have some changes that will go into effect as of July 1, new legislation that Allison's going to highlight in just a moment. So we've shared some of this work with you in past board meetings. We know that doing what we've always done won't work. We implemented the best practices. And even though we got the majority, we didn't get the super majority that was needed to get the bond to pass. We also know that the average voter age was 50. So that told us that some of our young families, elementary age, maybe middle school age families didn't turn out in what we were hoping, in the ways that we hoped they would. And we had just over 2,700 people vote, and when you consider that we have about 8,000 families or more, that also confirms that what we thought was an assumption, but it confirms that our families didn't get out to vote. And then Elmira's going to talk about this next bullet point in regards to property tax relief. It's been referenced several times. She actually has some numbers to share in the budget update, so we won't talk about that too much. She'll go over all of the details, but basically we know kind of the last minute law that was passed was called state property tax relief, and how that will work is basically in order that we must pay off school bonds first before we could even save that money for future facility construction and so on and so forth. The other thing that it did is it eliminated our March election. So that has kind of created a whole new playing field for us, since most schools have used March as an election day, because it's one of the more successful times for school elections, but it's also just kind of perfect timing when it comes to setting that budget to get ready for that. And then Allison, like I said, is going to talk to us about changes in bonds and levies within our House Bill 286 that limits and puts some restrictions and requirements on what we have to, how we have to communicate information to our patrons. And then related to that is we've seen the last couple of elections recently in May, suits have been filed or threatened when it came to the accusation of advocacy within school elections. So Bonneville was one, and West Ada was another.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to Allison.
So we won't go over all the slides that were in your packet, but just kind of hit the high points. So they changed the law around what appears on the ballot to add a section that said our district communications to people 20 or more. So think about our door hangers, our flyers, our posters, our social media reminders about voting, all those that go out to a mass audience have to include some required information. So, and that's, if you'll do the next one, this should look familiar. It's what's on the ballot, right? This information is on the ballot, but it has to be on every one of those communications now. And the same, next one, so the levy, so a supplemental levy, and same requirements. So that mass communication has to include information about taxes, the impact, other information. So what does that mean for us? Yep. So we can still have a simple message. You know, our schools are overcrowded. We need more buildings to serve more kids, but then we also have to have that required information. But it does have a significant consequence if we don't include it. It is that the election could be nullified. And it doesn't matter who does it. So a flyer from me, a flyer from the teacher, a message in a newsletter home, all need to have that required information.
Is that anything that's initiated by the school district? So if it's initiated by another group or another entity, then we don't have to, okay.
So outside groups, as they do now, have much more power in the message and freedom. They're not bound by that law. It is a law that applies to all taxing districts, not just school districts. So, but it just makes our job a little more complex, and we're happy to share information with patrons. So the next slide. So this is an example of, we asked the attorneys, our attorneys, who are sharing this information, would it be just for an election reminder? And we thought, yeah. So vote today, and then here's all this. So imagine if you have on the ballot a bond and a supplemental levy, all of that. So just some additional information about how we need to communicate. And then Superintendent?
Yeah. So just as a reminder, you know this, we use savings, and you'll see that again in the budget, the final budget consideration later on in the agenda. That instead of, like we said, we wouldn't ask money from our patrons if we had money. That only time we would ask is when we need it. So we use some of our savings so that we wouldn't have to ask for that, our supplemental levy. But when we made those decisions, you know, we had been promised multiple times by state leadership that we would be funded based on enrollment, and now we're going to be funded based on ADA, which means attendance. And that's always kind of been, prior to COVID, what we were used to, but things have changed with our attendance. We typically had 95 to 96% attendance, but we've made it very convenient using our resources for parents to be able to have their kids be out of school, whether they're sick or they have time off and they need to be gone, because we update everything in our learning management system. So we do anticipate when we forecast, this isn't, I'm not telling you something you don't know, you've seen it, when we forecast ahead that we will fall short to meet some of the needs within safety, staffing, and curriculum, should we not go back and ask for a levy of some sort to be determined in the future. And we know that students need new learning spaces. We have major investments to make in our existing facilities so that they continue to be able to be used, roofs, HVAC, all of those kind of things that we don't get money from the state for. The assumption, the direct, not even assumption, the direct, there's no state money, so where do you go to? You go to your local community. So we know if we're going to maintain, even if we don't build another thing, but in order to maintain the facilities that we have, we're going to need some sort of capital construction in the future. So that gets us to this, and it's kind of hard to see from where you are, but you can probably see it better on your screen. Instead of kind of a pro-con, this is, you know, our new like social media world, like thumbs up, thumbs down is our approach for this, for all of the different upcoming election dates that are available to schools. And again, I'll remind everybody, in my time here, we used to be able to run an election whenever we wanted to, and then it got narrowed down to 4, and now it's narrowed down to 3. So those dates are your November general election, your May typically your primary election or local elections, and an August date, which is not often very, very used. And you can see the success rates for each of those elections that historically, again, that success rate, those percentages, don't include March, which had a higher success rate historically, but we can't go back, we gotta go forward. So you can see voter participation in a November election would be higher potentially. This November. May 17th is all local elections, so we might have a high interest because it's all local kind of upcoming things. It's also busy, so that might be a bad fit time for families and parents. And then our next opportunity would be August. We've been criticized in the past for the March election. August could be even worse, considering that that's not even usually on anybody's radar, at least in Kuna, right? Because we haven't really used that date in the past. And then we have like that November 5th, which is the presidential election, which would have very high interest. We could get a lot of turnout for that. Obviously, you can see the pros and cons for financial planning, like timelines, those kind of things, and getting information out within that. So we don't have to decide tonight, but giving kind of an idea of maybe what's in your mind as far as where we might go next. Without, again, what, because we haven't gotten that information back from our community. Then, what's in your brains when it comes to that? What are your thoughts?
So last time we talked about, doing some surveys at the beginning of the school year with the parents when they're waiting in line at the bus.
That's still in the
kids' plan. And I'm not sure how quick we can take that information and turn it around to make it for the November election.
Yeah, that's a concern we have.
But my concern with May is that it is a presidential primary.
Yeah.
Which we could get drowned out by that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a concern there too. But I don't foresee that we can wait much longer than that, in my opinion.
Okay.
And we're not voting on anything, right? So
Right,
we're just
just
discussion,
talking.
right?
And mainly this discussion is this discussion only about the timeline?
Yeah.
Or can we talk about strategies
Yeah.
too?
You can do whatever you'd like to, Chairman.
The reason why I brought that up is last time I brought up, the fire district tried for quite a few years. I don't know how many. Has it been almost?
Yeah, 3 elections for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was over 5 years or so to try to
Yeah.
pass their levy. And I went, well, they got it passed this last time, and I asked some people that were involved with them, like, how did you do it? And I talked about before that they had a constant media push, social media push, where they were just sending out facts, like call volume facts, emergency situation facts, like population density, and where the fire station was and wasn't. And he brought up another point, and I'm just throwing this out there. He said however many millions of dollars that they were trying to levy for to do this, and they spent quite a bit of money on an outside agency or firm to come in and help publicate that.
Yeah.
And I think it's public knowledge, it's okay, they spent $150,000 to help get that passed.
That would have to be an outside group, the school district can't.
No, it was, I'm saying.
I don't know when
No.
I hear that amount.
I know, it's scary, like, and I'm not necessarily saying that we need to do that, but I'm saying they looked at the millions of dollars that they needed, and they put some money into it to get it to pass. And it was an outside agency that.
What I'm saying is that money has to be raised by the outside agency. The school district can't put any of that money into it.
Other than to inform.
to inform, but not.
So I have a question about the new
With
law
all
that we
those
just went
caveats.
through. Yeah, so if we inform, then we have to tell them all of that, even though we may not know what we're going to be bonding for.
When we're seeking information, input, that's different than when we're actually saying, hey, there's an election. So anything that has to do
So if we
with
said, hey,
an
this,
election.
the school has this population and this is what the teachers are having in the classrooms, we can say that without saying. all
Yes.
of
Yes.
Yeah.
that. I just want to make sure I clarify that.
So when you say decide by September 2023, it might make a difference to me. Is it, I mean, is it 60 days before, is it the end of September, or is it the first?
It's, I think, I
September?
believe it's 60 days before the actual election. Yeah, so that's why, you know, like if we were gonna do something in August, we would be deciding basically this board meeting. So we kind of, even though we might have a special meeting later to, you know, to make that decision. And I'm not suggesting August.
So it'd be a quick turnaround, but probably not an impossible turnaround if we could finalize it by the 1st of September.
Yes.
By our September board meeting, we could have some information as far
Absolutely.
as this thing.
We'll definitely have survey, and our hope is to just really grab parents, especially when we saw the results from our last election.
And
Their input.
I suppose we could even do a special board meeting if we had to
Absolutely.
in on like September 20th or,
Yes.
or something like that in
Yes.
order to still meet that
Yeah.
requirement.
Yes, we could. So maybe we could see kind of where we are come July and share whatever information we have, minus the kind of focus groups that we have. Can you get a sense?
I just
For
think,
August?
I think November 7th of 2023 just seems so soon after what we've been through. I realize we need it. I think we have some other options we can use, as in changing lines for different schools to kind of alleviate one school to the other, which may not make parents happy, but when we're looking at the kids in the classroom, which is what I think we should be looking at, that's one of the most important things, then I look at that and I think, wait, you know, I don't want to be another time where we go down and spend a lot of money. So that's my feeling. May 17th, I know that we've got some thumbs down, thumbs up, but I don't remember a time when we ran a bond for May 17th of this district.
We haven't run a May election, gosh,
It's been a while.
it's been a while.
But if you look at the success rate
I think it was 10
statewide,
years ago.
yeah, if you look at the success rate statewide, that's 37%.
So
But I don't know, I'm just throwing that out, type of thing.
I mean, I do note that for 2023 and 2024, off your election versus a general election, so we would just combine those two, right, as far as the 21%, because they're the same.
Yes.
So
Yes.
do we have any information as far as when it's a general election or when it's an off-year election?
We could certainly get that information. I know historically, a general election, school districts try to stay away from that because
Yeah. I think it's hard.
It's hard to compete with like a national elections,
Like a
right?
president type.
Yeah, we get drowned out.
So I think I would probably lean the other way at this point. I think we should find out,
Yeah.
and we should point towards November. We can always choose to not do it if we decide we're not ready, but I think.
I mean, this November?
Yeah.
I think we need to find out whether we can convince our patrons that it's really needed and it's something, because if we wait till May, then, I mean, you're really looking summer of 2025 before you can really do anything.
Right.
So,
It's, yeah.
And to your point, that May election percentage that you have there is, again, is that a presidential primary election or not?
right.
Oh, could be.
Yeah.
You know.
I think we need to have that broken down a little bit more,
Yeah.
because I
Sure,
think
get that.
those numbers might be
Skewed.
skewed a little bit by, because the general election is a pretty tough time, I think, because people get tired of going down through the whole list.
Right.
And they
Right.
get tired of hearing
Don't
and having so
Constant.
many things on their
Yeah.
TV and on their, and in the mail and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of tough there, but.
I just don't know if the turnaround is ready. That's awful quick turnaround. But I see where you're coming from, and I would most certainly agree to if that's what we all felt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be a lot of work and it's gonna be hard, but I guess, to me, we need to know if it was we didn't do a good enough job on this one election,
Right.
or if it's, we just can't get it done.
Right.
You know,
Will of the
and
people is
And we
no.
gotta look
Yeah.
at some other more drastic solutions in order to try to do it. To me, it seems like, I mean, I know it's a fairly quick turn, but
Well, and then my other question is, so that if it doesn't go then what are we looking at? You know,
Right.
that's the other issue, you know, and twice we take it to them and twice it goes down. How
well,
easy is it gonna be to get it back? I'm just throwing things out.
no, I
ideas out there.
understand, but, you know, I
Yeah.
guess at that point, we would have a better feel whether there's just no appetite for it, and we've done everything we can, and it's just not gonna happen.
But we haven't run that survey, correct?
Right.
Which is, it would be end of August versus September, is that what we're looking at? 'Cause
The
that-
focus groups,
that
we're gonna
puts it
grab
kinda
people
quick.
and all through the summer, when I say grab, we're gonna say, hey, would you mind asking, 3 questions real quick? Like at Kuna days and, before school starts, any events, we have them all mapped out, things that are happening within the city.
I'd really like to see that before we
Sure,
even make
sure.
a final decision. I'd like to
You
see
bet.
what the community's thinking, and not just our parents. but-
Yeah.
My other question though is, is our capital group, are they the ones that are looking at, okay, how do we switch this around, what can we do, what can we ask for?
Yeah, one of the questions we ask right at the very front of the survey is, which of these things did you support, if any? So we could get a sense of that,
Okay.
like what might we adjust with that group?
Are you putting on there, did you vote?
I
Can
think
we
we
ask
asked that
that?
question,
You can
I
ask it,
remember.
they don't have to answer it.
I'm just
You can
curious.
ask
I'd
it.
like
and it's
to-
anonymous,
Yeah,
so
I'd like
we're
to.
not asking for their name.
Is that on there?
Make sure.
Yeah, I think it is.
So,
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry,
I'm
you're-
sorry.
I don't know if we're ready to, I had a thought on number 12, asking about the debt question.
Yes,
I
I'm gonna
think
turn
we
it
should-
over to Allison.
I-
Yeah.
I
Trying
think
to
we
get
should,
the questions.
I think we
Yeah.
should also ask, because we have decided to basically have a level pay system to only collect $8.5 million a year.
Yep.
We're not required to do
Right.
that. We have bonding capacity that
Right.
we can love that. With the new law, 282, that says it has to go to debt reduction first, I think we should ask and find out if there's an appetite if people would be willing to keep the levy higher and collect more in order to pay off the bonds sooner, so that we could then direct that money, because if the bonds were paid off in 5 years, then we could use that 282 money for new construction at that point. And I don't know whether people are willing to do that or not, and I don't know whether I even think it's wise to do that. But I think it might help us to know what people are thinking, if they're just, a very conservative person might say, I don't want to spend any more money on bonds until it's all
Till the
paid
debt's
off.
paid off.
But they might be willing to pay slightly more, like they would on a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year
Right.
mortgage, in order to do that. And so I think it would be a helpful piece of information for me to know what people's appetite is for
Yeah.
that. And if their appetite is not for that, then that helps me to know that as well. So I don't know exactly how to word that, but I would like to maybe ask if they're willing to keep the levy rate higher in order to be able to pay off faster, and in order to be able to take advantage of that.
Thank you. So that was the input we played with this question. When I say played with it, multiple drafts and iterations of what that might look like. And then that was based on your input from the previous
So I
board
just think it
meeting
might need
too.
one more question
Yeah.
after this one
Yeah.
to say, or
That
another
makes
subpart,
sense.
to say, should Kuna only seek new bonds for new schools when the old bonds are paid off? And then maybe there's another subpart there. Would you be willing to pay slightly higher taxes, tax rate, in order to pay them off sooner, so that we could,
Yeah.
or
Have capacity. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea. My only question is, what does that do to the kids in the meantime? We're increasing the population and need of schools. And I get it, but I think that should be offered to the parents.
I'm not saying it's the
Yeah.
policy position that I
But-
adopt,
right, but
but
it'd
I'd
be
like to know
nice
what
the percentage of them
community
think of
and what
that.
the patrons
Yeah.
think of that. So,
It wouldn't do anything to help our immediate situation with the students, but it would just pay off, would save money
Well, it would give us an idea too, what the community, where they want to see that go, which I agree with Russ on that.
And another perspective of that too is like, I mean, this sounds kind of almost greedy, but if we did increase that tax rate and pay off the old bonds faster, and we're able to get a new bond, we could be dropping the tax rate and get a new
Right.
bond.
Yeah.
Well,
Which was kind of the original.
Tax
Right.
rate.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but it could be significant.
Significant drop, so then we could significantly ask for more too.
I think it might help us in the future, because there's a lot of confusion about assessed value versus
Yes.
levy rate. And people don't really understand how that all works together. And so I think this might help us to
See where
highlight
we are.
that a little bit and see, because there's a difference there between, yeah, at least my tax rates, we had that big increase there for a little while, and like 3 or 4 years ago, I looked at my,
Yeah.
and it was
It's like
pretty
19%.
shocking. But in the last while, because the levy rate's gone down, my actual rate, what I actually pay to my escrow company has not really increased. In fact, I think it's probably come down a couple $100. But and that's because the levy rate started out at 4.92 or something, and now it's down to what, 155
Yeah.
or something like that. So,
And now less.
but it's it's hard to explain that sometimes, because people just get their assessment and they go, holy
Yeah.
cow, this is ridiculous. And so I think it might help us to,
Yeah.
with some folks, to be able to.
Yeah.
It is such a complicated way of doing things that I think your normal staff or patron has no idea. So even by asking that, you almost have to explain what that would mean.
Yeah.
Which
That's what we wrestled
fine.
with.
Yeah,
No,
it's, that makes
it's hard, and I'm saying it's difficult.
Call dates, when we can pay things off.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
even remember when we just tried to pass this bond, trying to explain to them that it would not raise your taxes. It just didn't make sense to them, no
Yeah.
matter what you said.
That's all people know.
But something we
Yes.
could always do is defeasance things. Say, if we
Yes.
can, I mean, we may not be able to, and I understand there's limitations,
right.
and there's call dates, and there's all those kind of things, but there's probably options that we could use if we were collecting more than what we really
Absolutely.
could.
But I do agree with Russ. I do think that it'd be nice to see what the people think before we do that on the step push.
And when we ask a question like that, when we're talking to somebody, it's a little bit easier than, to
Right.
dig a little further what they, I mean, we'll get a general idea, but then we can dig further based on maybe some of the comments and things that we see.
I mean, if it's only 5 or 10% of people that are willing to do that, that tells us that that's not the direction we
Right.
want to go.
Right.
That's not where we want to go with it. But
Yeah.
if it was 60 or 70% that said, yeah, we'd like to consider that, or we'd like to see about doing that, that would be something different.
Yeah.
That we can look at. So.
Thank you so much for your input. The rest of the questions that we included that are new from when we shared it with you last meeting, it really goes back to the input that we've received from people saying, we don't know what the alternatives are, right? So if not a bond, we have all these kids coming, what then? And so we tried to capture things from what other schools, other larger schools our size or bigger than us, have had to do when there have been facility issues. Some of these things we have done in the past, some version of them. And this goes to not what we are going to necessarily do, but what other districts have done, because we want to phrase it so we don't want to make threats and we don't want to scare people, right? We want to genuinely know. So we kind of categorized these as like scheduling questions, like there's your year-round, hybrid, split shifts, some of those, and then asking for other ideas that people may have. Because we have the same amount of space, more kids, what do we do? And then there'll be a ranking. And then staffing, like, again, looking at what other school districts have done when it comes to like programs, which means people usually, which means space, right, those kind of things. And as you can imagine, many of those things actually actually probably is near and dear to my own personal heart and beliefs. So this is where we get into fear, you know, from everybody. But it will let us, again, we're not threatening, we're just saying, okay, we have to find space for kids. So what goes? What stays?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like almost everybody's in favor of cutting the national debt until it comes down to the hard
Yes.
questions of what does that mean?
How does that impact me?
Yeah,
What I
you're gonna
value?
cut veterans
Yeah.
programs, you're gonna cut social security, you're gonna cut, you know, all
Yeah.
those kind of things, and you got defense, I mean, then it gets hard, and then it gets
Yeah.
difficult, and so I think this is a good thing to find out, that there are real ramifications about this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I don't think people understood if it did pass, what would happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's important we let them know, well, what are we gonna do? Because we have no room.
Yeah. And I think we asked some of the more traditional questions here, like rezoning, attendance boundaries, that kind of thing too. Increased class sizes, because again, these are things we have done, you know, what most districts do when it comes to finding space.
I have a question, increase class sizes by 4 to 5 students, so that you mean just 4 to 5 onto the 28, but they may have, or the 30.
Or the 30.
Somehow I think that means it doesn't, as a layman person reading that, I don't think they understand.
So maybe we could put the
Current class sizes on
This,
this.
and this is what you're gonna have happen.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
Yeah.
because when I looked at that, I was like, okay, I know what you mean, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure
And-
the
and-
patron would.
Yes, yeah, especially just somebody who maybe not have children in the district, you
Right,
know.
I understand, what's 4 to 5, is it to 19?
Yeah,
10
yeah.
kids?
Yeah, especially if they're coming from other states.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you can see why these are things that we didn't lead with, because this, I'm looking at some of my teachers out in the audience right now, and they're like, no, that's not a recruiting tool, what we're seeing up here, right? And so when staffing, teachers, we have shortages across the state, across the nation, people are leaving the profession. I want to keep our folks here with us. So,
As long as one of our
So,
pillars.
yeah, we shared that with the staff, like, hey, this is coming out, it doesn't mean we're doing this, but that and enough is, you know, asking these questions could make people go, I'm out of here. So, I'm really nervous about those things, and I know you are too. So that's kind of where we are, and our next step would be to update, revise, tweak the survey, and start getting it out to our moms and dads and our patrons in the community. So, thank you so much for your input. I really appreciate your guidance in this.
Okay, thank you.
Considered the update agreement with the Hayden Creek subdivision, Director Morris and Principal Reno.
Trustee Grant and board members, thank you. Ms. Horace is at the city council tonight, so because of the early meeting, so it's by me. And we've got Tanner and Dustin joining us, who are the people behind Haven Creek. Last time I presented you 2 options where Haven Creek is a development in Canyon County, 29 homes, where they're looking to partner with us, and in that partnership, provide a very unique opportunity for our district and for our students, really. And it's to basically give us a house from the pre-planning stages all the way to, like, you know, plumbing, the elevations, designing everything all the way to the end. And really, Justin and Tanner carrying the load. Our teacher, Mr. Brown, met with them. We all met with Ms. Horace, and they took the stress and concern off Mr. Brown, our construction teacher, because they're taking on so much, and they really want to create a unique partnership. And I'll let them talk more.
I don't know if they can.
Can you guys?
We have it on our, oh, sorry. I say, oh, no, we have that, sorry.
Oh, maybe not. The joys of technology.
They're muted, or looks like they're muted.
It's like
So
he's trying to,
do we mute them, or did they mute themselves?
they may see it as a little red.
Right.
They're
want him to talk?
Very good.
Yeah. Justin, are you there?
There he is.
Yeah, so I just want to turn over to these guys. If you have any questions, you guys want to add anything to what I just said, or if you guys have questions on the board and the agreement that we came up with.
I want to say thank you for coming up with this idea. This is the coolest thing that I've ever seen anyone partner with the school district, and we're super proud of you guys and grateful for this opportunity. Exactly.
Yeah, I'll ditto that. I'm very excited. I love to see this, working with you guys and with the school district and with our students and all that you've put in. I think it's wonderful. You're a leader.
It's a great opportunity for our kids.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I think for us, we're super excited. It's really fun to work with you guys as a staff on this too. From our perspective, obviously, hopefully you guys see the value to the school district. I think for us, to be able to offer a community where people are going to move in there and they see that they're part of something else. They're part of the next generation of kids finding their careers. They're part of working with the school district. It definitely helps us, and it helps the cachet with the community as well. And so I think those are the types of things that we generally try to find is just ways that maybe take a little extra work that are win all the way around. And so obviously there's a lot of detail here. Robbie actually is going to talk through some of the details of what we're proposing, but if we do this right, there's a sort of feather in everybody's cap, and everybody's happy, and that's where it really goes.
So if you guys have any questions about the agreement or anything?
Can you just give an overview of what's going on here so people that are here in the audience know exactly what's going on?
So Haven Creek is a development that came because of your guys' direction in partnering with the developers. Really, they came to us to partnership. So what they've agreed to is donate one of the homes, the 29 homes, that's going to be in Haven Creek off of Robinson Road. But in the donation of the lot, they're going to carry, find a builder who's going to work with our kids, and with understanding that we can see houses that go up in 60 days in Kuna, right? This is going to take a year and a half, and it's going to go slow. We're going to advertise and present hey, this is a learning, Swan Falls learning opportunity, or how are we branded, or how do we work with them on that? But really, this is designed for that. And like I said, a lot of stuff we're going to do beforehand. They're going to learn about site planning, learn about what these guys do, I forgot the terms, entitlements, getting the entitlements and getting the planning and the plotting, and then all of this designing, the engineering, floor plan, elevations, the pre-construction, and then managing the construction, and then at certain points helping in those construction or seeing that component. And really, an applauding is Rick Brown, who's really shifted his curriculum to kind of make this the curriculum. So for this will really be the sophomore kids that will grow into this opportunity. So it'll be with the entitlements and going through, it'll be about a 2-year process until someone moves in, hopefully. Because they still have a lot of work to do. They still have to go in front of the Kenny County Commission and get approved with them. But this is the first hurdle for them to kind of partner with us and getting our okay.
Can you talk about the mitigation fees also? Because I think that's really cool.
They're going above and beyond.
I know. I just want to say thank you.
Yes.
Really, that's awesome.
We're setting it up to say thanks.
Yeah. I just want to talk about that.
No, they're going to so basically, we just have to pay them back whatever, I can't remember the total amount, whatever the cost of the lot is once we sell the house and to keep the funds in the house. It's really
Just to clarify that, so we have whatever our costs are, we're asking for reimbursement from them, but then whatever the actual profits are associated with the lot, so we need to build roads and put utilities and all that, but then whatever the profit is on the lot, we're donating the land and that part of it, and then whatever profit there is related to the house as well. Just one of the things which may be interesting that some of you may not be, I don't know, what we're really kind of the mindset that we have here is we were planning to build a certain
And it's sort of the same for our project, but it creates this accessibility and then share with the school district. And hopefully that can be kind of a pattern that other people can use for small and large projects to think about how they can also support the school and district or whatever organizations it is that they want to support. So we expect to be in front of the County Board of Commissioners hopefully later this month. But we're just proposing all this together with them. And so I think with your support, they'll see the value and what we're proposing and hopefully really well.
Are you going to testify?
Yeah, no, we will be. We have first Kenny County Commission that we go to. So.
Have you guys done this before with any other school districts? Has this happened before?
This is our first job. This is our first time trying to the school district. But we have other projects to other things. So we're working on a pretty decent sized project in Idaho Falls where we're taking some city-owned land and adjacent to the project and turning it into a dog park, and the whole park concept is for the whole wider community. So we try to do something in each of our projects that has some sort of public benefit. And so for the Hidden Creek one, it's what we're proposing to you guys.
I just want to say thank you for stepping out.
No, they're truly responsible developers and thinking of the community.
So if the County Commission turns us down, then it's pitchforks and. So.
Always think on the positive side. That's all about
Cool.
Any other questions?
Puts a smile on my face. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again.
I make a motion that we accept this proposal that has been given to us so generously by Hidden Creek subdivision.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I'll third that.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. Superintendent Johnson and Vice Chairman Thomas and Key President today.
Chairman and trustees, I'm going to just be very quick in my introduction of this. As you know, I'm very proud of the work that we do in just everything, but especially with our association. Other school districts don't always benefit from a quality relationship with their teacher leadership, and we do. And it's because of these two fine leaders in the room. It's because of our board leadership that makes this happen. So I think I have the clicker and I haven't done that. So before you is the proposed negotiated agreement for the coming school year. And I'm going to turn it over to these fine folks. Are you good?
Yeah.
You want the clicker?
Sure.
Before we start though, I want to thank them.
Yeah, we have a lot of help.
Beyond, above and beyond.
Oh, yeah.
What
Creative numbers. Amazing.
multiple iterations of everything.
Oh, man. Yeah. All
Every
right.
time we asked her to change something, she's like, I'll be right back. Or give me till next week. Yeah.
So, Melissa, and she's saving her voice. She's not feeling well. And so I'm kind of taking the lead on this, even though she's done the majority of the work on the presentation with Melissa.
Even knowing Melissa Nielsen, sorry, I'm doing a terrible job introducing.
It's okay. So presentation was done May 23rd, ratified, and we did spend all of May. We came back together, I don't know how many times, which you can imagine at the end of the school year was difficult. But we believed in doing something that was going to help the school district retain teachers, help our experienced teachers feel respected for that longevity, but also then tackle the problem of our governor telling the state that every teacher was going to get $6,500. Yeah, so we had our interests, but then we coupled that with that announcement, and we definitely had a huge task. So we met a lot. We met a lot. So it was ratified on Thursday, June 1st. And then, of course, we are here for you to consider. So you've seen this before, if you've been on the board as long as you have. We go through the interest-based process. It's a long process, but it's very, very important. Caldwell actually started it for the first time this year. But Boise and Kuna tend to be the only districts, I believe, that do it this way. And the reason that it's so important is that it is based on respect, mutual respect, transparency, and we make sure that we have all interests just right out there in the open.
Did you lose control just 1 second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. 90,000 is what that should be. 90,000 remaining for retention. This was given by the governor beginning of, I believe, this school year, wasn't it? Last fall. We had 90,000 left after giving to certified staff. The governor meant it for retention during COVID. We ended up with 90,000. We went ahead and just divvied that out amongst all certified staff, which is what we were only allowed to do. So each certified member, so that's nurses and teachers and anyone that's a certified employee, will get a 230 before taxes, 230 in their June paycheck. So I told you we were tasked with a huge, task. Basically, we wanted to make sure that our pay scale was more in, what?
Well, we
was
currently
the-
have two.
Yeah, we have two pay scales, one pre-2017, and then when the funding changed with the state, we had the post-2017. And I was on that negotiation, and we wanted to make sure to grandfather for those teachers, like myself, that have been here since 2002, that had a plan. We wanted to get over as fast as we could, and get all the education we could, and we had that plan. And so we wanted to honor that and then not go backward with the change in the funding. And so we ended up sticking with 2 schedules instead of just 1. Well, then as the years continued and the freezes that happened in 2008, 9?
Yeah.
Furlough days, all of that, it caused some problems. And then we had the problem of BA getting sometimes more than an MA. And so we just saw all these problems. And so one of our interests at the beginning of this year, and actually even last year, was, hey, we have got to fix this. So that's something that we...
Can I jump in?
Yes, go for it.
Because you're BA being a bachelor's degree.
Sorry.
And MA being a master's degree.
Yes.
So I pay
You
attention to
love those acronyms.
I'm like, wait, stop. Tell me what that means.
We throw a lot of acronyms at Joy, and she's really good about it. All right, so if I throw an acronym at you, please stop.
Yes.
Okay, so we decided to fix as much as we could this year the pay schedule. It's not all that we want to do, but it's definitely what we were hoping to be able to do with, of course, your approval. We made sure that the raise was not less than $3,550. If we had gone with both schedules, stayed, the course with both schedules and just tacked on a percentage, the most we would have been able to give would be about $4,000 with the budget that Sarah gave us. And it wouldn't have fixed any of our problems. We would have still had, teachers with bachelor's degrees making sometimes more depending on where they were on the schedule than someone with a master's degree. And so we really thought it was...
Or people with master's degrees not claiming that they had them because they could still
Right.
more.
Yes, we do have teachers.
The school district gets funded more for a master's degree, so it was a big problem.
Right, that's right, yeah. So there are teachers holding on to those master's degrees, not claiming them because on the old schedule they were making more. So that doesn't help the school district at all. So we decided to go with the $3,550 off after a lot of calculations, mostly on Elmira's part. We decided no health insurance premium increase for employees. One of our interests was to help our staff, certified and classified, with families and really help them out. Maintaining staff levels despite moving to the attendance, the ADA from enrollment. That was really important for us to keep our people, which of course then helps our students. And then, of course, that better salary. So I think a lot of our patrons and even some of our staff don't understand how we're actually funded. Of course, you understand that. So our current school year, we were enrollment. We were 100%. Whoever was enrolled, we got paid for. We are going back to our attendance. So based on our attendance is how that is figured out. And so we are looking at 271 units of funding, yeah, which translates to people. So FTE, which is full-time employee, whether that's a teacher or a nurse or a counselor, a speech pathologist, you name it, they are all counted the same. So we're thinking 293, KSD Kuna has 354, that's a difference of 61 people that are not funded or will not be funded. So go for it.
So when the governor said that every teacher would get the $6,359, which is on the loop in my head, he said that every single teacher would get that. When in actuality, they only gave us the allotted or the allocated FTEs of it. So that amounts to 1.6 million of the $6,359. So if you take the 6,359 multiplied by our 293 FTEs, that leaves 61 teachers without any money.
And can you explain why we have 61 more teachers than they say we need?
For the reason that, teaching 48 kids in a classroom is difficult.
So of course, when you take into account all of our certified employees, if you take our
teachers count, our psychologists,
you take them all out of the mix, the nurses that we heavily depend on with some of our special needs students. I mean, it's amazing what they do. Our speech pathologists are
they're not funded as like pupil services, they're funded as our FTE.
FTE. So they're not
instead of being in the classroom.
Right. So our counselor obviously doesn't have 25 students in the office. They're filtered in with the other FTEs. And so that's definitely a common misconception, as you know. Any other questions on this side? Okay. This was a visual that was put together, I think Allison, right? Master with the visualization, very nice. Just helping people understand the difference between what's funded and what we actually have and need. So this is the numbers, of course, the budget. So the projected allocation, you'll see there for certified, and the insurance. So we've got 19.9 million, and then we've got 5.8 for insurance. So the projected for next year is going up 23.7 and then 6.3. And then, of course, the difference you'll see there is the 3.7 and the 534,000. So this goes back into our interest. I told you that we had interest to merge the two salary schedules into one. We had an interest to help our families, our employees that have families that are trying to provide insurance and how costly that is. I know our insurance, they proposed Blue Cross or Regions, sorry, I've been here so long that we've gone back and forth so many times. So Regions was wanting, I believe it was 14% they had quoted us, is that correct? 14? and then we ended up, getting down, I believe, to 6. Was it 5.9?
5.9.
Yeah, 5.99, I think.
That was thanks to our broker.
Yes.
Negotiated that down.
Brandon Simon and that Murray Group, yeah, fantastic. So we were able to get that down. So this breaks it out. Now, one of our standards, if you go back to the list of our interests, our options, going through all of that, one of our standards that we weighed all of this against was obviously to be fiscally responsible. So always taking the budget into consideration, going back to that, crunching the numbers, but also to be equitable and fair, but not necessarily equal. And so by merging the two salary schedules together, the majority of us that have been here forever, we're down at the bottom, we can't move. That's just how it is. We're down clear over and, masters plus, third plus, and we're down there. And so most of us are receiving the $35.50. Now there are some though, like we told you, we're merging into those columns, and because we did take the salary schedule and shrink it, we basically merged columns of education. But we also adjusted salaries for those teachers that have master's degrees. And maybe weren't turning that master's degree in because they were making more on the BA plus 60 on the other schedule. So it did create some bigger numbers, and I think what we discussed was really what that did was put these people more in line for surrounding districts and what other surrounding districts are paying. And that was definitely one of our interests, was to retain people, to respect their education and their longevity with CUNA.
And all of these numbers are estimates of what people will turn in for their education. Every year we move down a year of experience, but the education movement is we have to get more of an education. Our hope is that those that are moving from the BA 60 to the MA, once they turn in that MA, the state will fund us for that as opposed to the BA 36. 36?
Yeah. So we kept up here, just for right now, we kept the categories labeled showing the merging of the two, and then Elmira then came up with an average, which was brilliant. We were trying to go a different direction, and it was costing too much, and we were just wanting to beat our head, at least I was wanting to beat my head. Like, what are we gonna do? I didn't want to go back to the two schedules. It just kept compounding those issues. We had people that were frozen in the center. We had people that maybe made less over here than people over here, and it was just a mess. And so Elmira was, and I know she's so humble, but she's so creative. And then I know Melissa, she saw a lot of inaccuracies and problems, and together they did amazing work.
So,
So
this is that year that she's talking about where the increase, the only way that these people down here in line 17 get an increase is if we put money into the base or we put percentage in. Several of our surrounding districts have what's called a legacy or years of service investment that they do, and we're hoping that that will be something that you'll consider next year, that we can, because the governor seems to enjoy putting a lot of money into the top, getting our people into teaching, but once we get down here, there isn't anything that says keep with us, and so we'd really like to keep our teachers in CUNA, and so we're going to propose that we have a legacy of CUNA teachers. So if you've taught for 10 years in CUNA, there would be either a percentage or an amount that you would get that would add on to this year 17 line. Based on and the reason why is that Percy is based on your average, your highest 3 years of service, your highest daily rate. It takes 17 years and a master's plus 36 for our teachers to get there, to that maximum daily, which is considerably longer than most of the districts surrounding us.
And it's a lot of money.
And it is a lot of money.
It's gonna cost a lot of money to go there.
In other words, it costs a lot of money to get your master's, just want to clarify.
Yes, plus the 36
Plus
extra
the
credits.
36. Just want to clarify that.
So this is a great representation that Miller put together that shows what the state funds versus what Kuna School District pays. And so as you can see, and a lot of our people are here.
So that just means we pay above and beyond what the state gives
Right.
us for each of those cells.
To keep people, yeah.
Can I just see on my, maybe on my own personal, where do our teachers fall? Like, who falls in that last category? How many are there? As far as the number of teachers, so that I can take a, no, it doesn't have to be.
You
can just send it.
Yeah, we have, oh yeah,
Okay, I just like to see.
We literally looked at
Every single person.
every
I'm sure-
single person.
I'm sure you did.
We did.
I just want to see that, especially if we're looking at legacy and we're looking at some of those things. I'd like to see.
That's a great, yeah.
Where they fall.
That's important. Yeah. So,
I'm sure you
we did. We looked at every
When you're
single
putting the two
FTE
Yeah.
to make sure that no one
would take less.
would take less and we didn't make mistakes.
Another thing that we had in the old salary schedule with those freezes is that we had years, correct me if I'm wrong, in there, 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 were the exact same all the way across. So even though you had worked another year, you didn't get an increase in salary. It was the same.
And where we're trying to
We've been able
retain
to fix that.
and recruit and retain, people would look at that and then think, oh my gosh, and I've even heard it in my own building. Oh, I couldn't go over to, people will chat with me on my computer after school and say, hey, I just noticed West Ada this, we're only here, like, why is that? And so, yeah, people are paying attention because they're planners, for their families. They're planning and they're thinking, why am I working somewhere where I'm going to stay the same for so many years or pay for more education and not change at all. So that's been a concern. So like I said, we have a lot to work on. So this is what the state actually pays in school districts for each teacher. So residency is that first 3 years. Then teachers may be promoted to professional if those first 3 years go well. And there's the funding there, advanced professional.
So the state is saying that a teacher with
17
yeah,
or 20
should
or
make
whatever.
58,000.
Yeah.
So we
But
probably
he
wouldn't
didn't
get
actually
very much.
allocate 63 to 59, right? He changed it?
No, he allocated 6,359 for the 93.
FTEs that the
So
state.
Right, and he's saying that he's adding that to all of these cells, but he didn't.
We can't. We just can't.
Well, we could.
Well,
Like, we could.
we could for fun put it in all those cells and see what the cost would be.
That's right, you took and allocated it to the
So-
extra 61.
There are some districts,
Yes.
smaller districts that are within their FT allotment.
Right.
That took this amount and put it into their salary schedule, but they put it in as a one-time payment, which is actually against what he said to do.
I live between Melbourne and Murphy, and I have a cousin who works in Melbourne. And at my grandmother's birthday on Mother's Day, first thing he did when he got there, because he's quite a bit younger than me, is he came up to me and he said, guess what? And I'm like, what? He goes, well, we got our contract done. I'm like, wow, that was fast, middle of May. And Melba pays what the state allocates. That's it. It's just straight, you give us this for this teacher, that's what we pay. And so I said, what did you do with the 6,300? How did you guys do that? He goes, well, we have 6 people that the state doesn't pay for. So we just divided it. and we each get a little over $5,000, and we're putting it in the contract as a one-time. And I'm thinking, so that means next year you're gonna go back if that's not given to, so.
So that was my other question, is so moving forward, do we maintain this?
So that's why is that the
I
next?
think it's that bill there, is that
Is that?
let me see if it's next. Oh,
Whichever
it's on the
slide it
code.
is.
No? Let me see.
The governor said that even though it's not, the 6,000 wasn't included in the career ladder, it's two separate pieces of legislation still, that the intent is for it to be permanent. We had a long conversation about that because there is code that says we cannot pay less than the year prior. And that's why a lot of people have done one-time payments and those sort of things. I still think they're on the hook for it, personally, when we check with our attorney, right?
Yeah, but we're worried that we would get sued for that.
Yeah, the only way we would be able to pay less is if there was a financial emergency, either at the state level or in our district. So for example, if we kind of talked earlier about a supplemental levy, if the supplemental levy didn't pass, that would, for where we are, that'd be a financial emergency. And we would be able to then not pay what we paid the year prior. I don't think that's a real great recruiting tool, however, for keeping people here. So I think we probably look at other things prior to reducing paper.
So that we wanted to be careful that we were not overstepping and make sure that we were not going to be, if we just put it into every cell like he said he was going to, we would be on the hook for a lot of money that we may not be able to afford in the future, and we did not want to get to that point.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that we were going to be okay going forward.
So putting the 1.6 million in the salary schedule as a minimum of $35.50 allows you to, when we go to negotiate for next year, these numbers will have increased just as a base for what they'll make this year, and then from there we'll negotiate the extension.
How much?
But it shouldn't create a hardship on the district based on the minimum of $35.50.
And we did that with that
Wouldn't
with
want to
Elmira's
take
Help.
it away.
Yeah.
Great.
Right, and we did look at that with Elmira's Help. We looked at, this year, next year, projected next year after that.
Just so you know, I lived through some freezes.
Yeah.
We
The
never
furlough
went
days?
back, we never went back, but we stayed the same.
But that's why we had those rows that
Yes,
were.
and that's exactly why,
Yeah.
but, just so you know.
How did that conversation finish with your, you said your cousin in Idaho?
Oh, I think he's a young dad. He's got 3 young kids, elementary, I think 6 and under. So he was thrilled to have the money, and they don't have much of a teacher input there. So they're they get what they get. And I think some of the teachers there are there for, their families were raised there, and maybe different reasons, I don't know.
I just worry about the legal aspect of that.
And
It'll be really interesting to see what, because in the legislature,
we talked about that a lot.
who knew that would be my new fun thing?
Yeah.
On the off time, is to read legislation, but it specifically says that it's not to be a stipend or a one-time payment, and that it needs to be included into the salary schedule, which is what we've done.
Which is why we wanted to be creative about it and try to make it as fair and equitable as possible, but also be fiscally responsible, because we definitely don't want to be sued. We definitely want to promote, recruit. We want our teachers working here, but so that's why we met a lot.
So there was one change to our insurance that we made that was a significant part, EAP, our employee assistance plan.
Every employee
went up this year, and so we switched to a different provider.
Work partners.
Yep, work partners. So the main change was that instead of 8 sessions, each employee only gets 6 sessions. But these are the changes where there's more providers. It also now includes legal, financial, part of violence, substance abuse services that were not provided with their other provider. And these ones as well are. So it's a guaranteed rate for 2 years, and these two are also benefits that we can.
And Kuna was top in utilizing this plan. So
That was my question.
is what we got from, yeah.
We don't have very many employees that use it, but we were the top in the
Yes.
valley of people who do use it, so yeah.
It's a very underutilized program.
But I think with the legal services, and we're promoting that within the union.
We did talk about that too.
Explaining that, you have, medical wills that you need, or, living trusts and that sort of thing, that is provided.
A more competitive extracurricular pay schedule was brought to us by Brian to align again with the districts around us for having, we didn't really have necessarily any rhyme or reason that was listed on the pay schedule for extracurricular as to why those amounts were there, and they were also stagnant. Unless we decided to maybe increase by 1% or so. So he did some research, found surrounding districts that had a base, and then for longevity, honoring those coaches so that we don't have a coach, that's coaching softball for 15, 20 years, and then a new coach making the same amount, to really honor those people. As we know, coaches are getting harder and harder to find and keep.
Our track coach for 7 years.
Yes, just like a track coach doing pole vaulting. Have you ever heard pole vaulting?
Yeah.
For free. His is going to increase by 0.
Zero for 7 years.
So, coming up with that pay schedule that's got the base and then has percentages for those years as an incentive to try to help retain our coaches and recruit as well. Anything added to that?
These are interests that we had that we have moved to next year's calendar. There is a recommended class size, but not a guaranteed class size. So even though, 24 second graders would be ideal for me in every year, I just recently heard that I'm up to 26 before the school year has even started. So it would be really nice to have guaranteed. There are some districts that if you go over the guaranteed, or the maximum class size, the teachers are compensated, and we've lost a few teachers because of that. The schedule and collaboration times has been an issue. The bell schedule, the busing, and the extended day contracts. There seems to be some equity issues in our stipends and our just allotments that we're paying different people. So we have asked that they create a task force to address these issues so that we can do it right, come up with some equity about it.
Can either of you tell me what are the minor language? I didn't get a chance to look at revisions to the master contract.
So there was word federal versus IRS, I believe. Mm-hmm. There was some federal type language that wasn't consistent.
Okay.
So we dealt with that. Was there anything else?
That was it.
Was that it?
Yeah.
That's
and then we updated the
thank you.
stuff.
Yeah.
It was, it just wasn't consistent.
Okay.
There was something else. Oh, the mileage.
Yeah.
Which had to do with the federal.
Yeah.
But, mileage came up with teachers were going between job schools. It was a little too vague. Mm-hmm. And so it needed to be tightened up. Yeah.
So is 56,000 allocated amongst every extracurricular person, or how does that work?
The pay schedule that Brian came up with increased by $56,000, but we were able to everyone. It's not to just one person.
No,
obviously.
it's the whole schedule. That's the cost of that schedule.
Yeah. So that's on top of their salary.
Right.
Yes.
As well as the extended day contracts are also on top of their salary.
And that's extracurricular. That could be CAST, Honor Society, could be softball.
You mean
no, the curricular, the extracurricular. I mean, that's everything. Yeah. We negotiated to continue the credit reimbursement for teachers seeking that master's degree, which does end up bringing more money from the state for those teachers to the school districts. So $150 per credit, up to 6 credits per year.
Is that only for the masters then?
Yes. Continuing education credit reimbursement, teachers need 6 credits every 5 years. So teachers can get up to 2 credits reimbursed if they take part in a KSD or an IDA course. And then continued phone spring review of revenue to negotiate throughout the year.
Which will be important for us now that we're on ADA instead of enrollment.
That would drastically change. Well, maybe not drastically, but we hope not drastically.
Well, we hope it drastically changes. In
our favor, yes. A little worried about that one. And then, of course, this is just a calendar. Okay. Of course, when it comes to who's going to be where on the payment schedule, Elmira's really great about being conservative and saying, hey, if everyone moves, this is what it's going to cost. So that the reality of who moves in education might be half that. And that's money savings for Kuna School District. So that's something that will be adjusted once transcripts are provided by in October, in the fall. So that's what this is alluding to.
Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
The teachers have to turn in their
credits in October.
In degrees.
Okay. I think there's the summary.
Any questions?
Any questions? It's a lot of information. We tackled a lot of problems.
Yeah, thanks.
Didn't fix them all, but we worked hard to get us on the trajectory.
There's a little more work that we want to do on the salary schedule that we're going to do
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your time and hard work, and we appreciate it.
A lot of snacks.
I think we're a better district because of that.
Yes.
I agree.
Oh, absolutely. This is my first year as the union president, and I have learned a lot from the IEA, but especially from other districts, other union presidents. And I know last year Mountain Home
Yes.
had a very, very awful negotiation with their, and it made me more appreciative of what we have, because there was nothing adversarial about. I mean, the 1.6 million really could have blown up in our face. But
Kelly Robinson and Sarah Brennan and I went to an IEA in December, right before Christmas. It's not the best time, but we went. And we were sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, we are so grateful for being able to work with all of you. Because sitting there listening to Nampa and Mountain Home, I just thought, wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So thank you
Yes.
for allowing
It
us
was kind of
to
scary.
I love
negotiate
the
this.
risk-based idea, because now you have things to handle next year.
Yep.
And you could be
Oh.
talking about just.
Well, we had put the salary schedule 2 years ago that we needed to do something, but it's such a
It takes time.
huge project.
You look at it, you're like, I don't even know where to start, but Omera and Melissa were
It really
getting it started, and we just
Takes a
roll
lot of
with
minutes.
it. Yeah.
Thank you to both you and your team. Appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Enjoy. Thank you.
We have a motion to consider the 23-24 school year negotiated agreement.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 2023-24 school year negotiated agreement.
We have a second.
I'll say that.
All in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Russ?
Thank you.
Kim?
Aye.
Julie?
And for questions, should I be abstaining since I worked on the committee? Then aye.
Okay, motion approved, thank you. Okay, so now the 23-24 classified pay schedule, Director Graves and CFO Feather.
Chairman Grant, trustees, now switching to the classified schedule. And, oh, thank you. And Brian is here for any additional questions you may have. This is just a summary of what I presented during our last board meeting and the changes that we made. There are no significant changes, but just kind of a refresher. The methodology that we used, we took a position, right? And let's say our schedule, the average is like 6 years. After year 6, that pay people kind of max out. Unfortunately, that's the same approach is being used everywhere. When you max out, you max out. But what we did, we took the average of 4 school districts, and we made sure that the amount in that cell is at least the average of 4 districts for every single year. So the good news that if you had a chance to look at each schedule, you probably noticed the consistency that from year to year, that amount is increased by 2%. You will probably were surprised, well, why the percentage of the adjustment is much higher here than it is there. It's just because when we are moving from $8 and $9 to the minimum of $13, then the adjustment looks more significant on this hand. And then when we estimate the average of 4 districts, the adjustment is decreasing because, first of all, people max out here and then they're still within the average. So that means that the rate was here very competitive. And unfortunately, in a perfect world, I wish we could increase every single cell by 20%, but there is only so much that we receive from the state. The good news is that after reviewing all schedules, each amount in each cell was pretty competitive between 4 school districts, including West Data. The adjustment that I made is we were focusing on recruitment. So what we did, we just added a little bit more to the retention. What about people that maxed out? We still want to appreciate them. So we put a little bit more and increased the base for the most experienced personnel by additional 1%. So that's the only change between my last presentation and today. And the schedule before and after is attached to the presentation. So hopefully you actually had time to look at it, to look at the amounts before and after. So that's the only change that we have made. It did change the overall amount by $20,000, but we're still within our budget of $700,000 because the goal was do not go above $700,000 because it's gonna throw our budget out of balance. And we did look at every single employee as well. I asked Tammy to do that, and it was worth of our time because we also wanted to make sure, is there somebody that, that we forgot about? Did we make statistical mistakes? We just didn't want any decreases. We just wanted to make sure. So we looked at every single employee. It was well worth of our time. So here you see the number of employees and their increase. So I spent a lot of time reviewing every single employee in this category between 2 and 7%. So, and the reason why the increase is not significant is just because their schedule was adjusted within the last 3 years. So that means it's part of the transportation or child nutrition or paraprofessionals, the groups that were here 2 years ago. So it's still competitive. It's, unfortunately, we do not have the ability to address all departments within 1 year, so we have this iteration. This is our year 3. So, and as you can see, we felt really good about it because almost 150 employees will see the increase between 5 and 15%, and more than 116 employees will see an increase of 15% and more. So we felt really good what we could do with the limited funds that we had. And once again, thank you so much for the resolution. Thank you for presenting to other districts. And thank you for other districts for joining us, because without that, we wouldn't be able to do it with, with the situation moving from enrollment to attendance. So the fact that we are not running for supplemental levy, they're moving from enrollment to attendance for us to be able to do that. So we felt really good. So thank you again. And
thank you for working on that and addressing the concerns that we had last month. Appreciate that.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the 23-24 classified pay schedule.
I'll make a motion that we accept the 23-24 classified pay schedules presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, Kirsten?
Aye.
Us?
Aye.
Joy?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Building
leadership on this. Wouldn't have happened without you guys, so thank you.
Can you talk to us about the budget?
Yes.
We just spent 90% of it, right, in those previous two items.
Well, then this should go fast.
So I'm gonna try to keep the budget presentation within 25-30 minutes. If we, and I'm gonna look at the clock, if it goes, longer than 25 minutes, please let me know, I'll wrap things up, yes. So, this is kind of just a summary of what we're gonna look at. We are going to, I'm gonna talk about, I've been presenting since April. This is what I think was gonna be, this is then in May, this is what I think is gonna happen. So today I'm gonna tell you what has changed since my last presentation. There's not a lot of changes, but there is a change. Then we'll look at 3 years, like our just regular, so we can see what actually happened 2 years ago, the audited financial statements. We are very close. We kind of re-estimated what is happening right now and what is it that we are asking for the next year, so you can visually compare 3 years. Then I'll talk about ESSER funds, and I also added House Bill 292 because we are receiving a lot of questions. So I thought, I'll just add some information over here in case you receive any questions from taxpayers. And then we'll have a motion to either approve the budget as presented, or maybe you will have some suggestions or concerns. So right now, I'll just tell you what has changed since our last update. The change is good. I talked about this change in May, said I met with Superintendent Johnson, and we think that 266 is too low. I think it's going to be within 270 units, but we're not sure. But already at that time, we consider that, and we put that considerations into the negotiation amount. So we put $1.6 million instead of 1.1, but we were nervous. And last week, we attended a webinar from the State Department of Education, and they shared the spreadsheet statewide, and they confirmed that we're right on with the units. So I feel very confident to move forward with this information. So that's a good change. And that is the only change. So right now we're just going to talk about 3 years. Isn't that nice that that's the only change, right? Usually we go through several slides. So the revenue is going to be higher than we originally estimated.
But we just spent it, right?
We already spent it, yes. So now we're looking at the general fund, money in, only revenue, and we have 3 years. And as you can see, the amount is increasing, which is good news, right? But if you look at the line by line category, you can see that we're not gonna collect the supplemental levy this year, $2.5 million. Then miscellaneous taxes and fees is pretty much close the same. We were collecting more in the interest because we had more funds. The funding has been decreasing, not the funding, but we in the bank at a certain point of time, and these 2 years are not good years to earn interest anyway. If you guys looked at your investments, we all lost money probably in the last 2 years. And so the amounts that are included over here, just miscellaneous, our tort levy, and also in addition to real estate property tax, we collect taxes from corporations. They pay taxes on their equipment. Assets other than buildings, so that amount is included over here. And this is the last year where we can take advantage of our federal funds, something to consider that's not going to happen next year. Transfers in means every time when we receive federal funds, we're allowed to take a little bit out of it and put it in the general fund. We call it indirect cost rate. So the rate is 13%. And as we know, this is the last year of our federal funding. So it's something that we'll have to consider next year. So with that said, I'm going to present the same information, but more visual, so you can compare the revenue from year to year. And as you can see, the difference between these 2 years is 7%, and here's 4%, mostly because of the supplemental levy, because $2.5 million is not here. But it's still an increase. The same information, but visuals, in case if you like to look at the pie charts. I always look for consistencies or inconsistencies when it comes to pieces of pie and proportions and colors. And as you can see, the supplemental levy is disappearing here. And unless you have any questions, I'm ready to talk about our expenses. All right, so the same general fund, our expenses year by year, and then we have our estimated fund balance. So I'll tell you the reason why I have two percentages here is just because in terms of presentation and what I'm going to send to the state, I have to show those separate. But the target is 12%, 12.05. So if we look at the actual expenses, this is our revised budget. So the good news, we actually, when we revised our 22-23 budget, we decreased our expenses. So we didn't spend as much as we thought we would, and most of it is just because the funds are still obligated. We just haven't had a chance to spend it yet for curriculum. We're already in June. By the time we adopt the new curriculum and get our bill, and it's probably going to be the first week of July, and we'll have to recognize expenses into the next year. So this year we're just showing it as a carryover, so we don't accidentally get too excited and spend it on something else. So thinking that it's savings, but there is $200,000 in savings in this year. So that's why we have to revise the budget so we can show an obligated amount, and mostly because of federal funds, because we receive some miscellaneous federal funds during the year, and we have to show every single dollar in the system, so kind of a standard provision. And this that amount represents our requested expenditures. As you can see, there is quite a difference between the prior year and this year. It's mostly because we're putting more, we're investing more in people this year. We're increasing, and overall utility costs are going up. And I would like to thank Trustee Johnson for suggesting for $50,000 in legal fees for prior year, because I'm so glad we did it, because we used all of it. So what we're doing this year, I wish we didn't, but we did. So, and I'm glad that we were prepared, and it only helped us to be better prepared for the next year. So we're proposing at least $70,000 in legal fees, and if we don't have to use it, more savings for us. So we already included $70,000 in legal fees. And over here, so what we're gonna do, as you can see, we will have to use money from our savings so we can pay for all these activities. And then at the end, and this is where I have to show it separate, we have some savings in ESSER funds, and we're not gonna utilize the funds, and we're gonna move allowable expenses to ESSER funds. And the target, kind of right now, the worst case scenario is 12%. We're hoping for more. We're hoping to stay within 13%. That will help us to be better prepared for the year when ESSER funds go away.
Can I just share that I was just training in another district in the state, and their fund balance is at 5%.
What does the bank want us to stay at?
No less than 9. Yeah. And that, is not quite 3 months worth of expenses. Of course, the lower is better, just in case there was ever an emergency, we could cover in our place.
Yes, so this is this percentage is at least 3 months worth of operations. So now, when I look at someone else's budget without going into the details, I always look at the charts, right? If I don't have numbers to go into the details, I look for inconsistencies. Is there anything that was in the prior year that is all of a sudden appearing or disappearing here? So it's kind of a good visuals for you. You can scan for consistencies and proportions. So as you can see, it looks pretty consistent. The average, the ratios that we use for a certain category. Alrighty. And then presenting the same information, but for you to see where we are with the fund balance. It is decreasing, right? But we are planning for that. That is strategic decrease, and we are going to work with the Moody Center, or how are they called?
Yeah, Moody's rating.
Yeah, Moody's rating, and we're gonna start advertising that. Please, this is a budgeted decrease, because what's the point of saving money for a rainy day if you never use it, right? So as long as they said, as long as it's planned, as long as you can show evidence, just like that was communicated, that's the plan. It shouldn't affect our ratings. And unless you have any questions, I'm ready to talk about federal funds. Alrighty. So just a reminder, 3 years ago, we got if I may round the number, $9.5 million in ESSER funds. So the state said, here's the amount, here's 3 years, you decide how you're gonna use it. You can spend it all tomorrow, or you can spend it all, or you can divide it between 3 years. So the strategy that we used, we kind of divided this amount into 3 years, right? So these are our actual expenses year 1. These are our estimated expenses year 2, and this is what's left for year 3. As you can see, these are the savings that I was talking about. Yes, we have $3.4 million, but my recommendation was let's not obligate it. Let's just use it to help our general fund. So we have $3.1 million, and it's already obligated. We have ongoing expenses, so we don't have to cut down on anything. We're just not adding on. And we're keeping our savings so we can help our general fund at the end of the school year. And that's going to be our last year, unless something changes, right? There's always something. So this is related to the House Bill 292. I received a few polls, and people ask the questions, right? How are you going to utilize the funds? So here's our plan. I don't know if you, I don't believe I presented this in the past. So this is the snapshot of the form we call L2. So for example, in September, I'm going to go to Ada and Canyon County, and they're going to ask me, how much do you need so you can pay off your debt, right? Or did you ask for supplemental levy? And instead of me telling them, I'll have to fill out this form. This is how they know. And then they certify it, then they make sure that it's included in our budget, and then they start sending us checks for payments each month. So then we can pay our debt. So we call it Form L2. And this is the snapshot of what we sent last year, and this is a snapshot of what I'm going to do this September. So as you can see, last year, the L2 that we submitted, we said, hey, we need at least $2.5 million for our supplemental, and we need $8.2 million to pay our debt, right? And this is what they collected from taxpayers. This is what we received. So this year, I attended a workshop with some training. They already implemented some requirements related to House Bill 292. So this year, they're going to ask me, how much do you need? I'll tell them, we need $8.2 million, because that's kind of our level pay plan. And then they will ask me, how much did you receive from the state? I'll tell them, hopefully by that time I will know the amount. Right now these are just estimations. I'll tell them this is what we received and this is what we received. And then they'll tell me, well, ask only for the difference. This is how they're gonna apply it. So a lot of districts are nervous. They're like, well, if I estimate $1.8 million, what if it's less? So the timing is on our side because we filed an extension. So the L2 form is due September 14th, and the state will process a payment in August. So I will know the exact amount 14 days before it's due. So I'm kind of gonna let you look at it and digest it. And did you have any questions?
No, I guess I mean, going back to what I said before, I think we need to maybe, I mean, I'd like to know what the patrons had to say, but I think we need to look at our strategy here, because at one point it really made sense to have that level pay and to keep it at $5 and do all that. And I think circumstances, partly because of HB 292 as well as some other circumstances, I think that might have changed a little bit, and I think we probably need to have, and it'd be nice to know what people said, but I still think, you know, maybe at least keeping that to the 8.25 plus the 1.8 might make some sense, you know, to do that.
Well, and once we pay off our debt at, we're getting 1.8, that's gonna take us a while to save up to build anything, right?
No,
That's
and
what
it won't totally solve the problem.
Yeah.
It'll just kind of take the edge off it and make it a little more palatable and be able to. I mean, it's going to take us. We'll be gone by the time we can even build. You know. I mean, what was it? 106 million for Swan Falls or equivalent. Elementary school is 28, so that's not going to do it. But I guess I'm just wondering if we can maybe at least get some options as far as what the levy rate would be, where we would end up with that. It would probably be good to do that before September. So.
And we did have these conversations with Michael and Eric. The good news here, what we're asking is at least 14 months worth of payment. So there is a flexibility here for defeasance, for a smaller defeasance, not the $3 or $4 million like we used to. So they were comfortable with this amount, but they did mention the same kind of an idea, what are we going to do next year, you know? And another reason why they suggested to go with the lower amount, because the legislature will want to see a decrease with the House Bill 292. They will probably ask us to send some kind of reports and stuff. So they feel pretty good with this budget that there will be with the cash forward, or with the carryover cash funds, and asking 14 months worth of payments. We will have some funds for defeasance for this year, but there will be some decisions that will need to be made next year. With that said,
when she says next year, like fiscal next year too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I also receive a lot of questions. Can you estimate the estimated property tax rate with this amount? So it's kind of too early to think about it, because we all got our assessments, right? We can see that the value has been declining a little bit. But the one thing we can see for sure, we are going to ask for less. And when a person opens their tax bill this December, and compared to what they paid last year, it will definitely be a decrease, regardless of the tax rate, because we are asking for less. So there should be property tax relief for our taxes, that's for sure.
No, I mean, I understand as far as they want to see a reduction, but I don't know that it's required when we have outstanding bonds that go through 2034 that we reduce it by the exact amount. You know, I think maybe there's some things that we can look at there. I mean, maybe we reduce it by 500,000. You know, maybe we, instead of by the full 1.8 or at least we consider those options, I think, and see where that puts us as far as the levy rate and all those kind of things. I guess I'd like to kind of see maybe a range of possibilities to just kind of see, and how that fits in with our overall planning strategy, because if we have some bonds that are coming due or that are eligible, then that makes a difference as well as far as what flexibility we have and what we can do. If we don't have anything that's eligible for another 5 years, then as far as call dates, then that's going to change how we go about it. Could still do some defeasances or different things like that, but still, I guess I'd just like to know some options maybe on.
Absolutely. We can have Michael.
Maybe during August?
Yeah, August or maybe even a preview in July.
Because the budget overall wouldn't change. It's just the breakdown, what do we put here, what we ask, and we have time until September 14th, just that we.
Yeah, maybe some time.
Alrighty. So when I only presented detailed information about general fund, ESSER fund, House Bill 292, but there are many, many other funds that we have. And there is a link to the detailed presentation PDF file, which I believe it's like 50 or 60 pages, so hopefully you have a chance to at least like glance over and see if you have any concerns. And if I noticed any inconsistencies or something that caught my attention, I put a little comment at the bottom why. And so this is the budget that we are going to submit to the state with the approval. And I'll just pause in case like you want to look at it. So we have our general fund, we have these are all our federal grants, this is our debt service fund, this is the budget that we're not providing the breakdown. These are the leftovers from our construction funds that we're using, and that's just the total. And I'm here for any questions or suggestions, and I'm not going to file L2 form unless we have that final, final approval with the breakdown. So we can either approve the budget as is or with some changes that you might propose.
I guess I'm not. So we could still adjust it as far as the levy rate and things up through September 14th or not? Or
We
can.
We'll need to bring in our financial, like with some options. I think I'd feel better. I think everybody's, when I say everybody, all the school districts with that legislation are like nervous about what it means. And so even our financial advisors, I know they were like, what do you think it means? You know, talking to Elmira with her expertise and other school districts with theirs. So I think we might have an idea.
I mean, it was intended for tax relief, and
I
understand that, and I think we should honor that, but I guess the size of the tax relief along with our other needs and also with our inability to pass a supermajority bond and also having to go back and ask for, I mean, it might make a difference as far as what we have to ask for on the supplemental levy, for instance, you know, there might be some adjustments that can be made there, which is also tax relief, which is also something that.
Which we already provided that without the additional bill.
Okay, so, but we need to approve the budget today because we have the deadline, right?
We can always amend anything in the future,
Okay.
And just to clarify, what we're approving today is the total need, like we're putting $8.2 million, this is what we need. So when I did publish the budget 4 weeks ago, and when I submit the L2 form, the Ada and Kenyon County employees of the department that's going to review the budget, they're just going to make sure that overall we're not asking for more than $8.2 million. They don't care about the breakdown, who pays for what. So what we can adjust is what we receive from the state, the amount that we put in, and the amount that we're asking from the community. out to until September 14th.
Okay.
So and this is where we put it. And this is the cash carryover, but please don't be alarmed because it does not include August payments. So, so it's almost only a half of it. Because we are on July to June basis.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the budget for 23, 24?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I just have a question. When we make that motion, do we need to put it that we will also take a look at it if we need to? No? Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Sorry. Come on, second.
All in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Rose? Aye. Kim?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the considered proposed curriculum adoptions. Director Walton, committee members Heather Griffith and Wendy Percifield and Hillary Woodland.
Yeah, they're reluctant to come up. They feel like they haven't sat enough tonight, so they want to stay, but they're here to answer questions as we go along.
Is this your last official duty?
No.
We're getting close. Getting close. Yeah. Huh?
Just want to make sure we're getting close.
We're getting close. Thank you.
I know. I'm done. I'm out.
Chairman Grant and trustees, thanks for this opportunity to share the good work of not only these three people, Heather Griffith, the 8th grade teacher, Woody Percifield at the high school, 9th and 10th, as well as facilitating, and then Hillary Woodland, who's been a champion parent for us during the ELA adoption. So those three represent ELA adoption, but we're also going to talk about a math adoption as well. Both curriculum committees share the same processes and the same steps. They just were happening both finished this spring. The ELA one took a little longer because it had been a significant amount of time since they've had the opportunity to dig into an adoption process. So these are the steps we took. Purpose and goals, looked at the standards from the state, and identified priority standards, which ones are we going to make sure we hit, which ones are we going to bundle together. We created an instructional vision statement and belief statements, and then we did sort of what is our current reality, and got feedback from teachers, students, and looked at data to see where our gaps are, and from that, like, what are our needs? And so then we looked at potential resources. Once we identified ones that we were interested in, we actually piloted, I should say, these teachers piloted. So in ELA, they pilot the middle school piloted 4 different resources, the high school 3. In math, and we'll kind of get to math, only one grade band looked at changing their math from what they currently do. So K5 stuck with iReady math, and 9-12 stuck with big ideas. So it was just the 6-8. They piloted resources. They went through the same. Everybody went through the same resource, the same process, but the other 2 grade bands felt like their resources were adequate. So just the middle school changed. And then after they selected a resource, then they looked at other supporting materials. So for the ELA, that essentially means novels, and for math, for the most part, that was manipulatives, math manipulatives. So here's what they selected. So in ELA, the 6A selected a product called My Perspective, which is a comprehensive resource, meaning everything's kind of tied into one, reading, writing, vocabulary, grammar, speaking and listening. And in 9-12, they went with 2 digital products, No Ready, which is a writing first, which also includes grammar, speaking and listening is embedded in there too, and some vocabulary. And Common Lit is a reading first, but it obviously also has vocabulary, speaking and listening, and some writing, just what their focus is. And then again, math, so the K-5 stuck with iReady, but it's an updated version that they'll be. The product is updated, it's the 2024 is available for this next calendar year. And 912 renewed their big ideas. They also have a 2020, well, the digital product has been updated. The print resources are the same, so they won't be getting, they'll just be getting the new digital product. And then 6-8, they were aligned with 912, and now they're aligned with K5 in terms of the product that they, the resource that they're hoping to adopt it with your approval. And then, so after we did all this, we went to get feedback from the public. This is how we did it. So this is with the help of Troy Stevens over there. So all the information about it went out in a newsletter, and it went out to all, all parents, high school students, and KSD employees. We also put on, Troy and Allison put it on Facebook and Instagram. And then we had a website. This is a live website, so if you want to look at it, you could. And so then here are like the results of it. So the newsletter itself, over 7,700 people looked at it. Direct hits to this newsletter. There were 42 just looking at curriculum adoption. So back to the link that was on the previous page. It got visited 265 times, and then from that 265 times, 41 looked at the math, and 132 looked at the ELA. And then we also, in addition, had like a survey that that people would fill out, and the survey itself, 10 people looked at the survey, but only 5 people completed it. And I don't think I actually updated my version, and this didn't get updated, but I should mention that the middle school, both math and ELA, have print versions, and they were available for people to actually go and physically look at their school. No feedback was left in the survey, and they were right at the front of the office, and according to both offices, and Mr. Jensen could probably verify this, nobody really took a look at those materials. Opportunity was there. And this, I just thought in case you wanted to see the actual surveys that were filled out. So the survey questions were like, which resource did you do? What's a strength? So they filled in a strength. What's a weakness? Any additional information? So these are the 5 responses we got. I don't know if you want to take a look at that. You probably have it in your packet to look at. I think that there were just a couple of things that people were concerned about. A couple of people were concerned about a unit in the 9th grade Common Lit, and talking about a particular unit. And I talked to Wendy about that, and she was like, "It's not a problem if it's a concern for parents. We don't have to do it, or it could be modified so that any concerns might not be there." And then the other concern was about Brave New World, which that's one of the novels that was on the list. So all the novels were provided on the list, and that any novel that we have, we put on the list because it might possibly be used. That novel hasn't been used in about 5 years. And so, just as an FYI, and there were 2 people that made a comment out of the 5 that responded. So, I know you're going to be sad, but that's all I have. What questions could these lovely people answer, or can I answer for you about the curriculum adoptions?
These are both state approved, all of this curriculum that we're adopting, is that correct?
Well, the digital products are supplemental.
Okay.
So they are non, but my perspective is, and iReady is.
And why did they decide to go with the elementary instead of the secondary to align itself with
Well,
that?
when they use big ideas, so the high school has the integrated path, right? So
Okay.
instead of saying algebra 2, geometry, they have all three of those in math 1 and math 2 and math 3. That part of the product is really strong, but when you just get to 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math, they felt like it was not as promised. It wasn't as robust, it wasn't as great as the integrated math piece, so they wanted to change to this other product that would serve the students better.
In talking to some of the math teachers about that, there were actually some of the standards that weren't being addressed, and so they were having to supplement.
So the iReady was better for them?
Yes, with the big ideas version, sorry to.
Yeah, no.
That was just some feedback they gave me on the big ideas, was that they were having to supplement that curriculum already. And now, we're going this way, they didn't have all their standards were.
Which kind of leads me to another question. Have we looked at where our weaknesses are in
Yeah.
the curriculum, and does this curriculum match up to that?
Yeah, so especially like ELA spent a lot of time with that, looking at data, looking at feedback, identifying gaps. And writing was one of those areas, so that's one of the reasons they went with like no red ink. And informational text was the other one that they felt like wanted some other, and so that's why a digital product is helpful, because informational text changes all the time, right?
Right, I just was wondering.
Yeah.
I have one more question, which I hope not to open a can of worms, but I noticed there's a lot about too much sexuality, sexual materials, and I just want to make sure that our parents have an option to opt out of that with their kids if need be. Always. And that's what I want to make sure.
It's been a
addressed
practice
here.
of ours.
Yes, and I know, I just want that to
Long
be said here. Yeah, that we know that.
Yeah,
we're educating
we've
the
talked
child.
about
Okay.
that. We've talked about that.
I think those are the only questions I have.
Yeah.
Well, how do parents feel about this language arts adoption?
How do what?
The parents feel about the language arts adoption?
Well, this is really the only actual feedback that we got. And so, there's at least a parent that said, hey, age appropriate and balanced variety, and a parent, and not everybody filled out all the columns, but this is the actual only physical feedback we got. So this is all we can go by. But there was plenty of opportunity, so I'm assuming that.
Usually we don't hear from people who like it, we hear from people who don't like it.
I'm a parent, I totally missed the survey, so it happens.
Well, again, I think that we have that, we know as a former ELA teacher and having some ELA teachers in the room, we know that I always have to make the judgment about what's good for my students. I always have choices, and people can, we've talked about the idea of sending out something ahead of time with the unit. Here are the things we'll be reading, so that another opportunity for a parent to preview to see if there's anything on there that, and like Mrs. Johnson said, we have the ability to give a parent a choice, give a student a choice if it doesn't fit.
Well, if we're going with the state standards, teaching to that, you have other options you can use as long as you're making that.
Absolutely.
And each teacher will know that and will make that accordingly to their students, I would think.
And if looking at the novels and the units, there are plenty to choose from, so it's
That's
not
what I was
like,
saying,
yeah.
Committee members have anything to add to that?
So one of the main things that we looked at when we were looking at all of these programs, which ones are easiest to make changes to where we can give students other options that will be just as rigorous and just as meaningful as the other ones they might want to step away from. So in looking at my perspectives for middle school, that one, it made it super easy to make those changes to accommodate families for what they want their kids to read. So
awesome.
Well, that one, a parent's perspective, no, perfect, because it reminded me of something.
All of the teachers on the committee were very concerned with not going too far this way or too far this way, because there's a lot, and both said they're feeling it from both sides of the community. book and your books, or, books that they don't want, or, the opinions are coming from both sides. So the teachers are really, maybe we're trying really hard to just stay kind of neutral, in neutral ground, and to pick resources that would be considered neutral, and if anything was iffy, they've tried to steer clear from it. So I felt comfortable with that. I was one of the ones that was concerned about some of the things and I've already talked to Kelly about that. And yeah, I feel like it's going to be a good resource. There's tons on there, but there's no way I could have gone through all of them. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that the teachers are on the same page and they want to communicate out that better. And then as parents, Christy and I are trying to get some parents together to read all the books, like to divide that up and read it so that we can provide a summary for parents, so they can make their choice easier and faster for the sake of the teachers. So yeah, that's the parent perspective there. I'm pretty confident that they're aware of the parent concerns.
Cool.
Thanks for your work too.
Yeah, thank you to all three of you and everyone else on that committee. But do we have a motion to adopt this curriculum here?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the curriculum as in language arts, 6th through 12th, and 6th through 8th math options.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I know you guys put a lot of time into this, so thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman and trustees, just want to give a special thank you to Kelly Long, who served over 40 years in our school.
That's what I said.
I mean, it probably looks similar to something like this, but this would be a decent size. But it can be whatever you want. It can be smaller or bigger. I think what Troy did have up there was just, he had the law up and it just showed it highlighted in yellow, the responsibility of the board. So. You just have to take action on.
Yeah, the size.
On the size.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept a donation of an 11 by 17 national motto to be displayed conspicuously throughout our school district in each school.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Aye. Kim?
Aye.
Joey?
Aye.
Okay.
Now the lights can go off.
Thank you.
And you guys already have people step
Yeah.
up to fund it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
We work through the ministerial association.
So
all the different
I'm
things.
just curious, how much is it gonna cost?
I don't know, honestly, I thought I'd give, once I knew
Yeah, I'm
this
serious.
tonight, I'll give Brian Taylor from E3 Church a call tomorrow, because one of the thoughts is that maybe each church would sponsor one, but maybe if it's not all that, we have some business partners too, so I'll find out a little bit more tomorrow when I give Brian a call.
I was hoping that, I guess I didn't realize that how it has to look. I was hoping it could be something more where the individual churches can make like a real wood plaque. That would be
They make
really-
one of that.
Yeah, yeah. It could say.
It just has to have the American flag, the state of Idaho flag, and say
And,
God
and,
be
and it
dressed.
has to have those certain colors.
Oh,
It has to have, black, it can be black, white, silver, or gold, but no other verbiage on it. That's it, yeah.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
we could possibly make it out of, there's a ton
Yeah.
of talented people out there that can make it out of
Yeah,
a wood plaque.
yeah. You guys would just, all we would say is this is the size,
Okay.
and so we could certainly do it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, falling asleep here.
I know, thank you for the opportunity to stand up.
So let's talk about school bus manager Saxton.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Like any good substitute, you get up to teach your lesson, the power goes out, and you gotta improvise really fast. We have this much in the bus It's not
Depreciation.
depreciation account. Next year, we would have this much for a total of about 188,000, a little more. Transportation manager Saxon is asking to buy a special needs bus for 146,534. She's also asking, and I think this is very smart, for the 10-year extended warranty. She said right now, remember our special needs bus is gonna have a lift, it's electronic. She said, what did she say? The average, just the average one computer issue costs at least $5,000 to replace.
Yeah.
So over 10 years, we're gonna have more than one computer issue, like today. For a total of 152,000, which would still have 36,000 left in depreciation. We're obviously gonna get a little bit more depreciation over the years. Bus, I think they're doing one part a day, so it'll take about 18 months to build the bus, she says. So we're not gonna see the bus for a little bit, but in order to get the bus as soon as possible.
Do we need to send our students over
Maybe.
there?
Just want to build it?
Yeah. Does the state reimburses someone?
That's what the
That's what
depreciation
this
is.
one.
Depreciation, thank you.
So it's only $50, but I noticed there's a difference, 5550 up there and 5500 here. I just want to make sure we get the bid amount correct. So-
We did some she's amazing at getting routes correct, the math.
Okay.
Amir quickly did some math.
So that amount is
It's-
correct.
According to Amir, if you believe Amir over Brenda.
Okay.
You're gonna get some hot water.
No, Brenda had some family come in town, she said today, so I said I'd be.
It's $50.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Well, let's keep going. I'll make a motion that we purchase 2025 CE International Special Needs Bus with extended warranty.
Do we have a second?
For the total of $102,034.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
My eyes are terrible.
152.
Okay, then I said it right.
Yeah. We had a second. All in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Joy? Okay, motion carries. What time is the ISBA Leadership Institute in June 14th?
9 to 1.
9 to 1.
And my question was, do we need to have the book ready before we go?
You will be receiving the book there, you two.
No, we got them in the mail.
You got them in the mail, okay,
Yeah.
then that's why I got these for you three, because we're not attending.
Is-
So I don't know about the
You guys are not attending?
They're not attending.
I will be in Alaska today.
Oh, gosh, darn it. I'm leaving for Seattle the next day.
When is the training? One training?
So the other training that we discussed last month about the continuous improvement plan, literacy, Wendy went through the law and, correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, but she went through the law and we've, throughout the last year, have already been trained on it in our board meetings.
And I
So we
documented
don't
it
need it.
in case it was.
Yeah, so we don't need to do an extra training at this time. And she's, like she said, she's documented it. If we do get a records request, we can prove that it's been done, so.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
done, so.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Also, Save the Data training is on July 11th from 9 to 11.
Yes.
Here.
We'll send you a reminder if you want to. Jason presented that.
Jason, and then.
Oh, yes, I remember that, yes.
Okay.
How long is that one?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll
move to adjourn. Yeah, second.
Aye. Second.
You did it.
That
all in
works.
one. You seconded.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Okay, motion carries. Good job. I like it.
Thank you.